All right, guys. So we have an update on this Neil Young situation. The situation that involves the unknown musician or the very little known musician trying to cancel Joe Rogan, who is the biggest podcaster in the world. Now, this is coming as there's been a whole lot of criticism of Spotify for platforming Joe Rogan and his podcast, because a lot of people, particularly those on the left and some people in the government as well, are saying that, hey, Joe Rogan's podcast is misinformation. Okay, he's pushing medical misinformation. Okay, and it's costing people their lives. However, none of these people will actually go on Joe Rogan's podcast and debate Joe Rogan, or at least have a conversation about what medical information that he's putting on his platform is wrong, right? What information is wrong? Okay, tell us why it's wrong. Back it up with facts and statistics. It should be easy since it's so-called medical misinformation, right? However, they won't do that. Fauci won't do it. The U.S. Attorney General, Vivek Murphy, won't do it. But they'll go on TV all day and call for the man to be canceled, to lose his podcast, simply because he is platforming ideas that they don't like, okay? So, again, this situation right here is kind of a fluid situation, and Spotify's under a whole lot of pressure. And up until this point, Spotify's held pretty strong on this, okay? They haven't really said anything, but they have quietly removed some episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience from the platform, although those episodes don't really seem to have anything to do with the whole COVID stuff. Okay, so Spotify is basically saying, listen, money talks, BS walks, right? We might be woke, but we ain't that woke. We ain't so woke that we gonna fumble a bag, right? They're not gonna fumble a bag, right? As again, Neil Young here basically tried to give Spotify the ultimatum, okay? You can either have me or you can have Joe Rogan, but you can't have both of us. And Joe Rogan has, over 200 million monthly listeners. Neil Young has 6 million monthly listeners. Who do you guys think that Spotify is going to side with, right? I mean, that's not a hard question, right, to answer. It's not a hard question to answer. And Spotify today basically told us what answer to that question was, as Spotify takes down Neil Young's music after his Joe Rogan ultimatum. So, Spotify has told us everything that we already knew, which is that Joe Rogan is too big to fail. Okay, just like Dave Chappelle, when it comes to Netflix, once you get to a certain level, right, you're simply too valuable, right, to be canceled. You're simply uncancelable. Because if Spotify doesn't platform Joe Rogan, somebody else will. Or Joe Rogan probably will just create his own platform, which will be better for him, and he'll probably make more money in the long term. So Spotify don't want that, right? They don't want to fumble the bag. Okay, they're capitalists at the end of the day. So capitalists gonna do what capitalists do. Okay, so let's read more about this. Spotify Technology SA has removed Neil Young's music. The company confirmed Wednesday as the folk rock star isn't wavering in his objections to Joe Rogan's podcast. The Heart of Gold and Harvest Moon singer earlier this week penned an open letter to his manager and label asking them to remove his music from the service, saying that it's spreading fake information about COVID-19 vaccines through Mr. Rogan's show. They can have Rogan or Young, not both, he wrote. Mr. Young's record label, Warner Music Group Corp. Warner Records, formally requested Spotify remove their music Wednesday. Quote, "We want all the world's music and audio content to be available to Spotify users. With that comes great responsibility and balance in both safety for listeners and freedom for creators," a Spotify spokesman said Wednesday. The company has detailed content policies in place and has removed over 20,000 COVID-19 related podcast episodes since the start of the pandemic, he added. "We regret Neil's decision to remove his music from Spotify, but hope to welcome him back soon," he said. I got a feeling that you will, right? I got a feeling that once this kind of goes away, after this dude, gets his 5 minutes of press, that he'll quietly put his music back on the platform, considering how a lot of his revenue and his money is probably coming from Spotify. For Spotify, the controversy is a significant test of its big bet on Mr. Rogan, one of the podcast's most popular and polarizing voices. Spotify struck a deal with Mr. Rogan in 2020 worth more than $100 million, according to people familiar with the matter, bringing his loyal followers and lucrative show extensively to its service. Mr. Rogan is central to Spotify's podcast strategy in attracting listeners and ad dollars to its platform and shows. While the letter has since been removed from Mr. Young's website, he has been in discussions with his label and Spotify since then and continued to hold his ground, according to people familiar with the matter. Mr. Rogan didn't respond to requests for comment. On Wednesday, Neil Young took more jabs, no pun intended here, at Spotify on his website, calling on others to join him in removing his music from Spotify. Quote, I sincerely hope that other artists and record companies will move off the Spotify platform and stop supporting Spotify's daily misinformation about COVID, he wrote, but added that he can't really expect that to happen. All right, so that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Okay, because this guy doing it in and of itself doesn't mean anything, right? Spotify won't miss whatever money they was making off the guy, right? They won't miss it at all. However, the issue is that this guy could potentially start a trend, right? Where there may be other woke artists who could be pressured by their fans, their woke fans, to say, hey, I don't like the fact that your music on Spotify. I want you to remove your music from Spotify because I don't like Joe Rogan. Now, if this starts to become a trend where you have other artists doing this and participating in this type of cancel culture, that's when it's going to be an issue. Because at that point, if Spotify starts losing major artists, let's say they lose, like, I don't know, Rihanna, right? I don't think that she would be the one to actually protest against this. So maybe that's not a good example. I'm just saying, if they lose a huge artist, right, that brings them, hundreds of millions of streams a month, yeah, that's going to be a big deal. And if a whole bunch of people start doing that, then that would actually hurt Spotify in the wallet. Okay, the return on investment for having Joe Rogan on the platform then at that point may become negative. Now, that's when hard decisions have to be made, where it's like, okay, is it worth keeping Joe Rogan if all these people don't want to be on our platform because of this? Now, I highly doubt that's going to happen because, Spotify, is basically reoccurring revenue for these artists, right? A lot of these people are really about the money, okay? This guy's just dumb, right? But a lot of people are really about the money, okay? So I think that this is very unlikely that will happen. However, this situation right here is worth noting, not because of this guy and who he is, but simply because he could start a trend, right? And that trend could ultimately end up leading to more censorship. That's kind of what happened when YouTube went through the whole ad apocalypse thing back in like 2018, 2019 or something, where a bunch of advertisers decided to pull out of YouTube because of some content that, was on the site, right? And then YouTube immediately at that point made a whole bunch of changes that ended up getting a whole lot of people censored, right? That's kind of how this stuff works. If one company or artist does something, that's not a big deal. It becomes a big deal when it becomes a trend, right? When a ton of people start doing it, that's when you start to see these platforms actually really ratchet up the censorship. So we'll see what happens on that front. But let's read a little bit more here. Spotify represents 60% of his streaming of his music to listeners, Mr. Young wrote, and pointed listeners to where his music is still available to stream, including Apple Music, Amazon Music, and Qobuz, a high-res music streamer. Mr. Young also thanked his record label for supporting him in his wishes to leave Spotify. All right, so yeah, I think that guy will be back, right? Because he's, again, 60% of his streaming comes from Spotify, which means probably 60% of the money that he makes, close to that, right? Somewhere in that ballpark, probably comes from Spotify, right? And once this guy starts hurting in the pocket, okay, he realizes that nobody really gives a damn about him, he'll probably quietly put his music back on the platform. But again, like I said, the main issue here, the main thing to worry about here, the main concern here is if other people join in on this. If other people join in on this, it is going to be a problem. It's going to be an issue. So we'll see. We'll monitor this situation. It seems like almost every single week there's a new story about some group trying to cancel Joe Rogan, which probably means that Joe Rogan is just going to grow in popularity. That's basically what it means. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.